What's up, everyone? My name's Robbie. Welcome to my channel, Word on the Chain. Back with another edition Thursday night here in San Francisco. And tonight slash today, we're going to be talking about consensus. What is it? Why is it important? And what are we supposed to see in the coming days from it? And what even is it to begin with? To answer that, consensus is a conference at its core. So for those of you who aren't familiar, it's an extremely large conference, to be exact, in New York City, where a bunch of thought leaders, developers, crypto companies, crypto teams, so on, kind of meet and talk about big announcements coming up, updates, different white papers, studies, things like that. And it just kind of highlights pretty much the current state of blockchain cryptocurrency and kind of the future of blockchain and cryptocurrency. It's actually known in New York now as Blockchain Week. Um, and like I said, it's even morphed into somewhat of a week now where, it's common to hear a number of announcements from different crypto teams during this week. Large parties are thrown with the money that comes with the crypto world, and then important meetings happen and so on. This year's consensus, however, went from this past Monday, so May 14th, and ended 2 days ago on Wednesday, or yesterday, I guess it's Thursday night, yesterday on May 16th. And it was about quadruple the size of last year's conference. So these conferences, or at least consensus, has been doubling now year over year. And you've probably heard, but if not, that's okay. But the consensus conference has this thing about it where it tends to cause a bit of a bull run in the wake of the week of the consensus. So typically in the past, we've seen the consensus conference happen and, X percentage gains from that. Here right now, up on the screen is actually a chart taken from CoinDesk. I don't think they did it; they just posted it. I think it's from a consulting firm, but it just shows the increases that have been seen in the following weeks of consensus. So some of you might think it's a bit crazy to base your technical analysis or your research or investing on something like a conference, but these numbers are pretty solid. I think that it's shows somewhat of a consistency, whether or not it's a pattern and whether or not you can make money off the pattern or it's going to do the same thing, no one knows. But I mean, some pretty significant numbers here. And if this, which obviously I think it is, it could be something to get pretty excited about in the market. That being said, as most of you know, we've seen quite the dip in the market as a whole, and especially as of this week. Almost counterintuitive of what you would see during the consensus. I think there's been a decrease of 20 to 30 billion in the overall market cap since Monday or Tuesday, which is pretty atypical for a consensus week, like I said. And has some investors worried that maybe the pattern isn't true, maybe they might not see the same returns. However, I don't think we should necessarily abandon all hope. Historically, that is where most of the gains have been made anyway, is in the weeks following. There's obviously a lot of FUD still going around within the crypto marketplace concerning the whole Upbit scandal, as well as fear of cryptocurrency just in general being categorized as a security. Also I think there's been a bunch of articles of our good friends Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger who've been kind of just doing their typical Bitcoin trash talking, cryptocurrency trash talking. And for those of you who aren't familiar, side tangent, if these two individuals weren't trash talking cryptocurrency, it would be kind of strange. They're traditional investors. This is something they're incentivized to do. So if you think that there's legitimate claim behind what they're saying, outside of the fact that they want real companies to do well, or not real companies, but you know what I'm saying. yeah, just keep in mind that when you're listening to what Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are saying, Warren Buffett even went as far as to say, uh, talking about virtual assets like cryptocurrency and likening them to the terms of, or he used the term, excuse me, rat poison, and compared it to cryptocurrency. So just tread water lightly when listening to them. They have an insane incentive to keep eyeballs on the current and normal, quotes, I put that in quotes, marketplace of investing in the stock market. So while it is impossible to pinpoint the reason for the recent decline, like I mentioned with the upbit, FUD of securities, Warren Buffett and whatnot, we shouldn't discount the impact that consensus still could have. The crypto market is very psychological. Tons of people can fight me on this, I'm sure. It's driven by the same psychology that drives the bull runs, for instance, that we love. It's the fear of missing out. The same thing that drives the bear market, for instance, the fear of missing out in terms of not your cryptocurrency not getting too low. It's driven by what other people are doing and talking about. So as a time like consensus sets up a psychological bull run quite well. I don't think the market has changed that much year over year. I still think it's extremely psychologically driven. Um, the reason being why I say that I think consensus could still have an impact is that a lot of these cryptocurrency teams, developers, organizations, investors, what have you, just in general, tend to wait until an event like this is happening to announce something. Because when they announce it at an event like this, they get a lot more publicity. They get a lot more notice. There's a few reasons why they might want eyeballs on what they're doing, right? One, they want more investors. Two, just they want their peers to see what they're doing, peer acknowledgement. Just a general impact and view on their company. There's a number of incentives to try and get as many eyeballs on this as possible. And this is particularly true in a bear market as well, where any piece of news doesn't get nearly enough attention, or it kind of gets viewed in a negative light. Where in a bull market, any given piece of news that comes out, it can be like tiny, and it's just like, this is the greatest thing ever. And if it's really good news, it's just like, oh my God, everyone get on board. So it's quite different, and I think because we're in a bear market, it drives even more so the incentive for these teams and folks to wait to consensus to announce a lot of what's going on and with their current projects and things like that. So knowing this and knowing the amount of things that will be discussed, released, and the historical impact that we've seen from consensus, there is and there could be a strong case to be made that we'll still see an increase in the coming weeks. Whether it triggers the next bull run, it's hard to say. No one knows that. Don't listen to anyone who tells you they know that. That's snake oil. But the pattern does show that there will be an increase, and despite what we're in right now, there's a good case, like I said, to be made that things will start to look up. But not to be a negative Nancy and kind of end on this note, but keep in mind, markets have a tendency to iron out patterns, so to speak. If everyone starts to notice a pattern, then they exploit it, and the market being a market will just correct itself, and typically the pattern will then cease to exist. So let's hope that everyone isn't sitting around, waiting for the price to go up instead of buying to make the actual price go up. So hopefully that pattern kind of stays true, and it isn't kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. But definitely keep an eye on the market in the coming weeks. I'm sure most of you look at it daily, though, so that shouldn't be a problem. But wanted to keep this one short. That's all I have for you today. Don't let the current bear market or this week get down on you. I think there's still a lot of chance for us to see some run-ups in a way, some increases across the board in the coming weeks in the wake of consensus. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you're returning, definitely send me a like. Anything's appreciated.